Something extraordinary happened at Wimbledon after Alex's journey came to an end. The tournament carried on as expected. Matches continued, scores were recorded, rankings shifted, and the draw steadily moved toward the championship. On the surface, everything seemed normal, but something had changed. The atmosphere felt different. Conversations throughout the All England club were no longer centered on the players still competing. They kept returning to the one who had already left. It wasn't the usual disappointment that follows the early exit of a fan favorite. It was something deeper. People spoke about Alex as someone who had transformed the energy of the tournament itself. Her absence made everyone realize just how much life, excitement, and emotion she had brought to Wimbledon. That is what makes Alex's story remarkable. Some achievements cannot be measured by rankings, statistics, or scorelines. Sometimes, a player's greatest impact is the feeling they leave behind. To understand why, we have to return to the beginning of her Wimbledon campaign. The excitement didn't appear overnight. It grew with every match, every victory, and every unforgettable moment. By the time her run concluded in the fourth round, she had created an atmosphere unlike anything many longtime Wimbledon staff members had ever witnessed. The first signs appeared away from the main stadiums, on the practice courts. Normally, Wimbledon practice sessions attract only the most dedicated tennis fans. A small crowd gathers, a few photographers capture warm-up shots, and spectators quietly watch routine forehands, backhands, and serving drills. But whenever Alex stepped onto a practice court, the scene was completely different. Crowds gathered long before she arrived. Fans packed every available viewing area, standing several rows deep just for a chance to watch her train. They waited patiently through the simplest drills because, for them, simply being there and watching Alex was an experience worth having. Tournament volunteers and staff, many of whom had worked at Wimbledon for years, began noticing the same pattern. Whenever Alex's name appeared on the daily schedule, the surrounding practice courts became noticeably busier. Crowds grew far beyond what anyone would normally expect for a training session. This wasn't the result of a marketing campaign or a promotional event. People came because they genuinely wanted to see her. The excitement surrounding Alex had spread far beyond her official matches. She had become one of the tournament's biggest attractions, drawing attention wherever she appeared. And then there were the flags. If you walked around the Wimbledon grounds during Alex's remarkable run, looking beyond the courts and into the sea of spectators, one detail stood out above all others. You couldn't help but notice the flags. The flags were everywhere. They weren't gathered in one corner of the grounds or limited to the courts where Alex was scheduled to play. They were scattered across Wimbledon, red, blue, and yellow, waving proudly through the crowds. They were carried by fans who had traveled from the Philippines, by Filipino communities from across Europe, and by supporters from every corner of the world who understood, long before much of the tennis world did, that they might be witnessing something historic. They refused to experience it through a television screen if they had any chance of being there in person. And that decision was no small commitment. Getting into Wimbledon is famously difficult. The queue is one of the tournament's most iconic traditions. Every year, thousands of fans spend the night outdoors, patiently waiting for the opportunity to purchase the limited day tickets that can't be secured any other way. Alex's supporters embraced that challenge. They waited for hours, navigated the logistics, and earned their place inside the All England club because they knew this was the kind of moment you don't want to watch from afar if you can possibly be there yourself. Then came one of the tournament's most unforgettable moments. After winning her second-round match, Alex stepped up to the microphone and thanked her supporters in Tagalog. The crowd erupted. It was one of those rare sporting moments that reaches beyond the scoreboard. Even spectators with no personal investment in the match could feel the emotion echoing through the stands. That was the remarkable thing about Alex's Wimbledon journey. The excitement she generated didn't belong only to the Filipino community or to dedicated tennis fans who had followed her career from the beginning. It spread. People with no connection to the Philippines and little interest in women's tennis suddenly found themselves paying attention. Some discovered her through social media, others through news headlines, and many after seeing clips of her heartfelt on-court interviews. One interview, In particular, captured why her Wimbledon run became something much bigger than a tennis story. Standing on center court after the biggest victory of her career, having defeated the defending champion in straight sets, Alex wasn't focused on statistics or personal glory. Instead, she spoke about her childhood. She remembered going to the tennis courts after school with her brother and grandfather. She smiled as she described her ruffled socks, the shoes that lit up every time she walked, her chubby cheeks, and the simple joy of hitting a tennis ball with the people she loved. There was nothing polished or rehearsed about it. It was an honest reflection of where her journey began. She admitted that for a champion of her opponent's stature, a Grand Slam defeat might simply be another difficult day. But for someone who grew up where she did, with the opportunities she had, reaching this stage meant everything. Then, almost instantly, she shifted her focus. "I'm not satisfied," she said with a smile. "Next round, let's go." That combination of heartfelt vulnerability and relentless ambition cannot be manufactured. It isn't something a media coach can teach. It comes from character. And in Alex, people recognized something genuine. They shared her interviews, talked about her story, and introduced her to friends and family members who had never watched an entire tennis match before. Suddenly, those people were tuning in, eager to see what would happen next. That is how a remarkable tournament run became a cultural moment. Not because of marketing, not because of favorable scheduling, not because of an easy draw or a lucky week. It happened because one athlete remained completely authentic in the biggest moments of her career, and that authenticity resonated far beyond the boundaries of tennis. Back in the Philippines, the television ratings and online viewership told the rest of the story. Across the Philippines, public watch parties came alive. Families, friends, and entire communities gathered to cheer for a player who had already achieved something no Filipino had accomplished in the open era. The matches were taking place in London, thousands of miles away and separated by multiple time zones. Watching live often meant staying awake through the night or waking before sunrise. Yet people showed up anyway. Wrapped in Philippine flags, they watched every point together, celebrated every victory together, and believed together. Then came the fourth round. Alex battled fiercely against Pavlyuchenkova in a gripping three-set match that lasted 2 hours and 22 minutes, a contest so evenly matched that it could have gone either way. When the final point was played, disappointment swept through her supporters. But it wasn't ordinary disappointment. It was the kind of heartbreak that only exists when the emotional investment is real. You don't feel that deeply about something you only followed casually. The sadness reflected just how much Alex's journey had come to mean to millions of people. And before long, that sadness transformed into something stronger. Pride. Not the kind of pride people reach for to soften the pain of defeat. Real pride. Pride rooted in what had actually been accomplished. Because what Alex achieved was genuinely historic. She became the first Filipino player in the Open era to reach the fourth round of a Grand Slam. She stunned the defending Wimbledon champion on center court. She committed only 21 unforced errors while forcing her opponent into 44, an extraordinary performance against one of the most consistent competitors in the game. She survived an unforgettable first-set tiebreak that lasted 84 minutes, saving set points before finally winning it 11-9. 2 days later, she returned to compete for more than 2 hours in another demanding Grand Slam battle against a former major finalist. These are not consolation statistics. They are the numbers of a player who proved she belongs among the very best in the world. And she proved it on tennis's biggest stage, under the brightest spotlight the sport has to offer. The fact that her run ended changes none of that. Every tournament journey eventually comes to an end. The real question is what that journey leaves behind. Alex's Wimbledon left behind something far greater than a place in the draw. It created a new standard for Filipino tennis. Before the summer, no Filipino player had ever reached the stage of a Grand Slam. Now, someone has. A barrier that once seemed permanent has been broken. And it happened on one of the most famous courts in the world, before the largest audience the sport can offer. From this moment forward, every child in the Philippines who picks up a tennis racket will grow up with a different understanding of what is possible. Not because someone told them to dream bigger, but because they watch someone from their own country make those dreams real. There is a profound difference between hearing that anything is possible and seeing living proof with your own eyes. Words can inspire. Reality changes belief. When Alex walked onto center court at Wimbledon and defeated the defending champion, she gave young athletes across the Philippines and throughout Southeast Asia a new vision of what they could become. That moment is now permanent. It lives in the record books. It lives in the highlight reels. It lives in the memories of everyone who witnessed it. And it will continue inspiring every player who follows the path she helped create. Another remarkable part of Alex's Wimbledon story was the way she handled her sudden rise to global attention. Fame can change people. It can encourage athletes to become overly cautious, carefully managing every word and every appearance until the authentic personality that attracted fans begins to disappear. But Alex never seemed to fall into that trap. Throughout the tournament, she remained unmistakably herself. The same person in press conferences. The same person during her on-court interviews. The same person in every conversation and every public appearance. Her success never overshadowed her authenticity, and that authenticity became one of the biggest reasons the world connected with her. Even away from the court, Alex never stopped being herself. One of the moments fans loved most was an Instagram story she shared with a friend after meeting the Princess of Wales. There was no carefully crafted message or polished public image, just the excitement of a young athlete enjoying the biggest week of her life and wanting to share it honestly. That authenticity resonated. She stayed after matches to sign autographs because she genuinely wanted to connect with the people supporting her. She approached practice sessions with the same energy and enthusiasm she brought to center court. Fellow players spoke about her with genuine warmth, not merely the professional respect competitors often express, but the kind of admiration reserved for someone people truly enjoy being around. That distinction mattered. Her authenticity became one of her greatest strengths, not because it was carefully planned, but because it wasn't. She wasn't trying to appear genuine. She simply was. And in an era where every public appearance is scrutinized and every word analyzed, remaining completely yourself is one of the rarest qualities an athlete can possess. As impressive as her personality was, her tennis drew just as much attention. Experts throughout Wimbledon highlighted the qualities that will shape how future opponents prepare for her. Her movement is exceptional. She reaches balls that many players would give up on, yet she does so with remarkable composure rather than frantic desperation. She glides across the court with an effortless calm, often seeming to know where the next shot is headed before it's struck. That anticipation has quietly become one of her biggest weapons. It doesn't always appear on a statistic sheet, but it forces opponents to hit one extra shot. At the highest level of tennis, that extra shot is often the one that produces the mistake. Her tactical awareness was equally impressive. Rather than relying solely on power, she constructed points with intelligence, mixing pace, spin, angles, and direction to move opponents into uncomfortable positions before striking at exactly the right moment. Instead of overpowering opponents, she often outthought them. Of course, like every rising star, Alex still has room to improve. The most notable observation came from one of the greatest players the sport has ever known, Martina Navratilova. Navratilova pointed out that Alex's serve has the potential to become a far greater weapon. With her athleticism and natural strength, she believes Alex can generate significantly more pace while making better use of the unique advantages that left-handed players have against right-handed opponents. Coming from a legend whose own dominance was built around one of the greatest serves in tennis history, that wasn't criticism. It was guidance. It was a blueprint for the next stage of Alex's development. The difference between being a Grand Slam contender and a Grand Slam champion often lies in refining the smallest details. For Alex, that detail may well be her serve. The timing couldn't be better. The hardcourt season begins in Washington before attention shifts to the US Open in New York, a tournament with special meaning for Alex, having won the girls' singles title there in 2022. This time, however, she won't arrive as an unknown prospect. She'll arrive as one of the most closely watched players on the tour. Every opponent will prepare specifically for her. Every match will carry new expectations. Yet she enters this next chapter with something invaluable. She has already proven she can perform under the brightest lights in tennis. She has earned the support of millions of fans across multiple continents. And she now has a clear roadmap for improving the parts of her game that can elevate her even further. Those few weeks between Wimbledon and Washington may become the most purposeful training period of her career. Meanwhile, Wimbledon continued without her. The remaining matches were played. The finalists took the court. Another champion lifted the famous trophy, just as Wimbledon champions always have. But long after Alex had left London, people were still talking about her. They weren't simply discussing her results. They were talking about the atmosphere she created, the excitement she inspired, the belief she awakened, the impact she left on one of the world's greatest sporting events. That kind of influence is rare. Every year, hundreds of talented players arrive at Wimbledon. Most compete, most leave, and before long, their tournaments become little more than numbers in the record books. Alex's story feels different. Statistics fade. Moments endure. What she changed for Filipino tennis cannot be measured by a single tournament. She gave more than 100 million Filipinos a reason to see themselves in a sport that had rarely offered them a place on its biggest stage. She redefined what young players across Southeast Asia believe is possible. She proved that the path to center court isn't reserved for athletes from traditional tennis powers. It exists for them, too. That belief will outlast any scoreline. Alex arrived at Wimbledon 2026 as one of the brightest young talents in tennis. She left as something much greater. Not just a promising prospect, a presence. A player who fills practice courts before matches even begin. A player whose defeats receive standing ovations. A player who inspires midnight watch parties thousands of miles away. A player whose absence changes the atmosphere of an entire Grand Slam. Those are not things that can be won in a single fourth-round match. They are earned over years through talent, perseverance, authenticity, and belief. Alex has been building that legacy for a long time. Wimbledon simply introduced it to the world. And judging by the 4 words she spoke after the biggest victory of her career, next round. Let's go. ****, it feels as though her greatest chapters are only just beginning.